Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about what do you do if you have an old laptop like this Compaq here. This is a Presario F700, so it's pretty old. What are you going to do with something like this if you have to reinstall the operating system? And I'm going to talk about other things. Well, unfortunately, HP, which is Compaq, is HP, are not very good about customer service, about having things you need to fix your laptop. Now, if you go on the HP website for this particular laptop, once again, it's a Compaq Presario F700, you will see they have no drivers at all for this computer. None. Now, something else you need to think about if you're trying to restore a laptop, do you want to try to go with 64-bit or 32-bit? Now, that can be a little bit confusing sometimes because some laptops come with a 32-bit operating system, but they can actually run a 64-bit, like this one. Now, this is the box right here that this came in, and I'm not sure if you can see this. I hope you can. But right here, it came with Windows Vista Home Premium 32-bit. Now, if you want to know if your laptop or your computer can run a 64-bit operating system, as long as you already have an operating system installed, a Windows operating system, there's a way you can do this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to check this, and you have to install a program. Let me get this large enough where you can see it. Well, that's too big. Called Securable. Now, when you install Securable, it will ask you right here, okay? When you install it, sometimes it'll ask you, or it'll try to install, like some other programs, depends on where you get it, third party, like a game, some other thing. So be careful when you install anything. And all you want to do is actually install this and run this. Now, as you can see, this laptop can run 64-bit, has hardware DEP, and hardware visualization. So with this program, you can actually see if you can run a 64-bit. I figured I could because this has the AMD Turon 64X2 mobile processor on it. So I figured I could run it on this. But before you go trying to install a 64-bit operating system, check it. As long as you have Windows or something else, if you don't have an operating system on there, I'm going to show you how to check that in just a minute. You will have to download a version of Linux and create a Linux USB bootable drive, and you can check that way. But as far as if you have Windows, you want to upgrade or switch operating system on an older laptop or computer, this is the way to check and see if it will run 64-bit. If it says yes, you can do it. If it says 64-bit there, you can do it. If it says like 32 or x86, you can't. It has to be a 32-bit operating system. Now today, other than this, I'm going to show you how to change the hard drive on this Compaq F700 laptop, and I'm going to install Linux on this for you. So, and before I install it, I'm going to run it so you can see if it will run. Now, on my last video, I actually talked about this laptop on the charger. I showed you how to work on the charger down here on the plug to get it to work if it wasn't charging your batteries or if it wasn't powering your laptop. I do have it plugged in, and I did want to show you. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. Now I'm going to shut this down, and I'm going to show you how to replace the hard drive in this and install an operating system that you can use if you can't install anything else, such as Windows, or you can't find the drivers for it. Like I said, this laptop, it came with Windows Vista only, 32-bit, and some came with 64-bit only. If you go on HP, that is all that this laptop runs. It does now have Windows 7 on it. If you want to upgrade your laptop to like Windows 7, the first thing you have to do is download some type of driver pack, and these things are a pain. They are the size of DVDs, so you have to have a blank DVD disc to put them on, and some are actually even way bigger than that. I have a driver pack that it takes up an entire 4.75 gigabyte blank DVD disc, and that's how I install and update some of the drivers for this off of, for Windows 7. Now let's get to changing this hard drive out. First thing I do is I unplug everything. And you'll probably see some little things out here on the front. This laptop does have an overheating problem. I have ordered some new thermal paste, a new thermal pad for this laptop that I will be changing out. And I just made some little silicone feet on the front. I will be making some for the back, to get it to where it gets more air and not just sit the way it was. Anyway, let's pop the battery out. I do have another hard drive here. Now this is a slim SATA drive. I can't really tell you what size. I think it's a SATA 3. I'm not sure. But it's much thinner than the one that's in here now. So, but changing everything on this computer is not that hard when it comes to changing things like the hard drive. Now, your battery, you pull down the back. What you want to do is flip it around. Now right here on the front corner now, you will see a square. It will have 2 screws. I do apologize with the quality of this video. This little camera I have every light on in our little bitty mini studio apartment here, and unless this thing actually gets pure natural light like outside during the summer, it just stinks. Alright, let me see if I can get this off with one hand. There we go. Now you can see that's where the hard drive is. Now on some of these you may have small screws here. I do not have any in here. The first 2 holes on the outside are for the lid, and like I said, some of you may have screws here. You have a little plastic piece here. There's a plastic tab right here. You'll lift up and it comes right out. Now you're probably wondering, well, I don't have a hard drive that's going to work on something like this. This is how it looks. It is not an IDE. It is not SATA here. This is an adapter that fits on the laptop, and it slides right out. This is actually a regular SATA laptop. Let me pull this out real quick. And you can see, I hope you can see that, that's the adapter. And there's the pins. Alright. Now what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take screws out. There's a case around this. You're going to have to take 4 screws out. There's 2 on each side. Okay. And once you do that, you'll put your other hard drive in and tighten the screws down. Now let me change this out, and I will show you as soon as I get this changed out. Well, better yet, let me keep this running. I know it's getting long. I apologize. Okay, all 4 screws are out. The laptop, the hard drive here just pulls out. It's kind of hard to do this with one hand. And it may be a little tight on the back, but that's okay. There's the hard drive. And this is what I'm putting in. So, slide the hard drive in, slide it back, and you'll line your holes up and you'll screw it in with the screws. And like I say, this is a different size hard drive. It's much flatter than this one, you know, much skinnier, but it'll work. So let me get the screws in, and then I'll put the adapter back on and put it back together for you. Okay, here we go. As you can see, the screws are in. I hope you can see that. Now, when you put this back in, what you need to do is line it up with this adapter. Make sure your adapter's right, because it only goes on one way, and it only goes in here one way. So let me slip this back on, and I'll put it in for you. Alright, got that on. I hope you can see that. There's a little piece of plastic here. I just leave it up. Usually it goes down around the back. I just leave that up. I'm really not worried about that. Now when you put your hard drive in, you put the back in first, because there's 2 little tabs in the back. I don't know if you see. There you go. I hope you can see that. Put the front down and you push, and that's it. And now we'll put the cover back on, and let me make sure that's in there pretty good. I want to make sure it's tight, because sometimes it's just hard to work with things with one hand. And once again, one hand. Yeah, it's in there tight. And we'll put this back on, and it just slips on there. And the screws I have are still in here, so I just have to tighten them down. Now, a lot of questions people have when it comes to this is, how do I enter BIOS to get a USB to boot? Now I'm going to show you that. Now I'm going to put my battery back in. Alright, let me turn this off a minute. Let me hook this back up, and I'll be right back. Now before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this right here. Press ESC to enable startup message. Alright, now of course there's nothing on here. Okay, hold on. I want to talk about this real quick for a reason. Most people are confused on how to get into your BIOS or your boot order. Alright, to enter setup is F1. F9 is to change your boot order. F2 is to startup check. F10 is for setup. Alright, so I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to insert this. Now if you're not sure, hit F9 when you start it. That'll go into your boot order. It says please wait down here on the bottom corner. Now right here, this is where a lot of people get things confused. Okay, most things are your right and left does work here. Okay, on your arrow keys, right and left. Now go down for boot options. Now here's where most people get it confused. When you're on boot options, hit enter. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to disable a lot of stuff, which I'm going to disable right here CD-ROM. Now here's what happens if you hit your arrow key. If you hear that, it's because, well, to actually change the values on this BIOS setup, it's F5 up here at the top and F6. So if I hit F5, it goes to disable. Hit F6, it's enable. So I'm going to disable that because the DVD-ROM on here is actually bad. And so I actually disconnected everything on the inside. I just have it in here to keep dirt out. I have another one coming pretty soon. Now go to boot order, hit enter. Here is how you set this up. Okay, to move these up or down, go down on your arrow key. Now if I want my floppy to be all the way at the top, I would have to go down to floppy and hit F6, and you see it moves it up. Now I don't want it up, I just want it down. Now that I need to move down because, like I say, there we go. And right there should actually set up and work. Now what I want to do is I want to put the hard drive, USB hard drive, it says, down. And notebook hard drive is down, farther down on the list. Alright, and hit F10 to save this. Now if I have my USB plug-in right, my flash drive, it should boot through Linux. Now if it's not, that means something's out of order. These Compaqs are a real pain to work on. There we go. Now it's booting up Linux. Now this is Linux Mint Cinnamon 19 64-bit. So if you're confused about when you get into BIOS or your setup, then you up and down arrow keys work, side by side works when choosing things at the top and going down to like boot order. But when you get to that boot order, you have to use the F5 and F6 keys to enable, disable, or move things up and down. Okay? And F10 is save. Now as you can see, this is an old computer. Like I said, I do have Windows 7 on a separate hard drive, but I'm showing you this in case you have a computer like this. These things are a pain to work on, they're a pain to set up, and if you have a Compaq, good luck finding drivers from HP, Their drivers, I believe, they only go back like 7 years, maybe 10 at tops. I mean, if you're lucky, that you can find drivers on their website. So if you have an old computer, then this is one way to actually get an operating system if you need to upgrade it. If your computer, laptop, check it first. If it does have 64-bit capabilities, go with 64-bit. All 32-bit stuff is pretty much being discontinued. It's, from web browsers to going on YouTube. I mean, everything 32-bit is being pushed to the side. Now, this Linux Mint will install on this hard drive. And what I'm going to do, I turn the Wi-Fi card on down there at the bottom. It says Wi-Fi available. Alright, I'm going to close this, and I usually try to use a mouse on these because I hate using these little pads, but right there it says no connection. I'm going to click on that, and there's my wireless. So I'm going to go ahead and put this online. I'm going to connect. Connection established. Now, before you install Linux, you want to make sure that everything looks okay. I mean, so far it looks alright. My Wi-Fi works. You can go to a computer on Linux, open that up, and it shows you everything that's on here. See, right now, the USB shows up as flash USB disk, Linux Mint 19 Cinnamon 64-bit. That is what I'm installing. Now, if you want to see if your operating system is a 64-bit or 32-bit, you can go through Windows and all kinds of stuff. If you want to see if your laptop or desktop can take a 64-bit before overwriting everything, download Linux Mint, both 32 and 64-bit. Put them on a flash drive and use a program called Etcher, Etcher, that's Etcher, to put it on your USB drives. Boot from the 64-bit one first. Mark it, put a sticker on it. I have a little L I drew on my flash drive. Put the 64-bit one in first, and it will tell you if your laptop or computer can run 64-bit. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install. And like I say, it's already online. So, I mean, it does look pretty good. The only thing I dislike about Linux Mint, or any Linux version basically, is when you set it up. It's real easy to set up. Everything's set for US, on me. Is when you put, and yes, right here, this is important. You want to install third-party software and graphics drivers, Wi-Fi, everything else, MP3, flash. You want that installed. Alright, I'm going to hit continue. Now this is going to take a while because it's going to download that and install it. So when it starts to install, I'll come back and I'll continue with this. Alright, now what you see now is installation type comes up. Now it says it has detected no operating system. Well, what I like to do, now I want to erase the disk and install Linux Mint. Okay, now if you already have a version of Windows installed, I'd advise you keep it if it works. Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7. The reason I'm saying that is Linux Mint will actually make a dual boot system for you, and I will show you what that looks like. I believe on my other laptop I have XP and 7. It's basically the same way. Basically you just pick one. So what I'm going to do is hit erase disk and install Linux Mint. I hit install now. and this will pop up. Do you want to make changes to disk? Hit continue, and it'll go from there. One thing I do want to make clear, if you're having problems, see right here's what I hate, before I talk about anything else. It says Denver. Now, I do not live anywhere near Denver, but I'm in the same mountain region, so I have to type in where I'm from. And then hit continue. Then you put your name and a password. And like I said, I'm just putting any, a password I can remember. I don't care if it's a weak password or not. It's something that's short. I don't care if you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in, because Linux does not install anything pretty much without asking for that password. So make it something simple that you can remember. And now it's going to be installing. But shoot. Now I forgot what I was going to talk about just a minute ago. It doesn't matter. Anyway. Oh, your USB. The thing about using Linux and putting it on a USB flash drive, Windows will never see that flash drive ever again. I mean, it will not. So there are a few ways that you can actually, if you have Windows, recover your flash drive back. You will need a partition program for that. Watch my other videos. I will show you how to use one. It's a free partition program that you can recover your flash drive back with that, even with Windows. The thing about Linux is Linux will see Windows. It will see everything in Windows. So if you have, say, XP and you install Linux Mint next to it, everything that's still on your XP partition you can access through Linux. Videos, music, your pictures. Linux is not Windows. Do not expect it to run a bunch of Windows stuff, because they're totally different operating systems. Linux is a really good operating system. One, it's free. Almost every version of Linux is free. Linux Mint is free. It has a lot of games you can download and install. It has a lot of programs you can install. They have everything from basically Microsoft Office. They have basically their own version of it. They have a calculator. They have clocks. They have, a lot of things you use. They have media players, audio players. So, it will go online. It does go to YouTube. They even have Steam. If you go on Steam and play Steam games, Linux, this version does have Steam you can install. So, you're not going to lose pretty much anything except for the gaming. This does not run Windows games. Linux does run a lot of emulators, such as PlayStation Personal, PSP, PS1. I believe they have a PS2 emulator that you can install on here. Game Boy. So if you're into gaming, yeah, they have a lot of stuff you can install. They have their own games you can install on here. But as far as Linux, I have never had problems with Linux not picking up my devices or my hardware. Unlike Windows, where you have to actually find device drivers for everything under the sun. So, like I say, I mean, if you have an old laptop, and I'm not saying do this if you enjoy your Windows programs or if you enjoy Windows. What I'm saying is if you have an old laptop that needs to be redone, or for some reason you can't reinstall the operating system because you can't find device drivers for it, try a version of Linux. There are different versions. They call them distros, and they are free, most of them. I do prefer Linux Mint. It's one of the easier ones to use if you're a Windows user. And you can see there's a line down there. I don't know if you can see it. It's still got a ways to go before it's installed. But I will come back, and like I say, this video is basically on how to check to see if you can use a 64-bit operating system, how to change a battery, not battery, but the hard drive in a Compaq Presario laptop, and how to access the BIOS setup. Once again, if you start your Presario and you need to get into BIOS, your boot order is F9. If you hit and just tap F9, that should take you to the screen that I was at when I first started installing the new operating system. So check that out. And like I say, Linux has a lot of things. You don't have to go with Linux, but if you have an old operating system, once again like XP or a 32-bit version of Vista, good luck doing most things online. Most places have quit using 32-bit anything. It's hard to find a 32-bit web browser anymore. Chrome, Google's got away from 32-bit. Firefox, pretty much away from 32-bit. There are some 32-bit web browsers that you can get, like Komodo Dragon, Komodo Ice Dragon, WaterFox, things like that. So, if you have to stay with 32-bit, you can leave the operating system you have now, or if you're having problems doing anything online with it, you can try Linux and see if that'll actually help. Linux does come with 32 and 64-bit, so, and since you can install it on a USB flash drive, you don't have to worry about burning it to a DVD. You don't have to worry about having a DVD or in your computer at all. So, like I said, this video is basically how to work on this, how to install an operating system on this, how to check to see if you can install a different operating system on this. So, anyway, I'm going to shut this down. I'll be back just to show you what you can do with it after it's done installing. And of course I have to get Midnight in here. He's scoping stuff out. As you can see, I got another light hooked up, trying to get more light over here. We're absolutely in a very small studio apartment, and unfortunately every light is on in here for me to try to get this for you and better quality. We have a light there, and over there. This is our apartment. I mean, that's the bathroom there. This is it. I mean, right there is the wall, and I'm against the back wall here, and here's the other wall. So, as you can tell, I mean, it is really tiny. And with all these lights in here, you would think this camera would work better. Okay, let's get Midnight out of the way, and hopefully he gets out of the way. Installation has finished, and I'm gonna hit restart now, and he's rubbing up against the camera. He's a ham. And as soon as it starts going dead like that, you'll have to take out your USB. Okay, Midnight, get away from the laptop. And Midnight's just being a Midnight. He's, well, nosy. He's a ham. Everything else. If it doesn't automatically reboot. Now, here's what some people run into. Alright, Midnight, I'll rub on you. As you can see, it's blinking up there. If it doesn't shut down, immediately remove your flash drive. Okay? Then hit your power button. And you want that to shut down. Usually Linux will actually shut it down all the way. If it doesn't for some reason, these Compaqs have a bad habit of not wanting to shut down like that. Once you get Linux installed though, and you boot it up for the first time, it'll shut down just fine. And now, we turn it back on. Let's get midnight in here again while that's booting. And once again, to change your boot order, it's F9. Okay, to enter setup, it's F10 on these Compaqs. I believe most Compaqs are pretty much the same way as this one. Midnight's right here, and he's just being a pest. So, like I say, I mean, if you're unsure and you don't have a way to check, like your operating system is completely bad, won't start, your computer OS won't start up, the best way to check to see if you have a 64-bit or 32-bit, download both 64-bit and 32-bit Linux Mint and try to install the 64-bit first, and it will tell you if your computer is actually 64-bit compatible. It will not install if your computer can't run a 64-bit. And there we go. I didn't really mean to make this video into a Linux Mint video. I have other videos on that. But since I was showing you how to install the new hard drive, I decided to go ahead and demonstrate how to put an operating system on it. If you have Windows with your drivers backed up, you can actually reinstall Windows. I'm sure you know how to do that. So, like I said, I didn't want to make this into a Linux thing here. See, this will pop up when you first get here. If you uncheck this dialog that box down here, this won't pop up again. But if you go to first steps, you can go to system snapshots. I'm not going to set that up. Basically what system snapshots is, it's like a backup of your entire hard drive. So think of Windows System Restore. Basically is what that is. If something happens with your system, you can recover it that way. They have a driver manager. There should be no drivers on here other than what Linux has on. Now, here's the update manager. This will update your Linux Mint first time you run it. Security update software. Hit OK. And it'll load probably one thing, which is Linux. Linux kernel or something like that. If anything needs to be updated. And there we go. Hit OK. And see, it'll pop up asking for your password. Authenticate. Now, I'm not going to set up snapshots. I'm just going to hit finish because it wants me to set up snapshots. And I can take time shift and close it down. Okay. And we click on that, install updates. You do not have to set up snapshots because it takes forever. It actually goes through, scans your entire system, backs up everything you have on here. So it does take up some room, and it takes forever to do. And it's updating the package files for this. So, like I said, you don't have to set up snapshots if you don't want to. But if your system crashes for some reason, you put a bad program on here, or if something happens, then it really helps if you do that. Okay, and that's done. Now I can close this. I see all these are updates. I'm not going to do any of these right now. And there's a lot of them. It would take a while to update everything here. So I'm just going to close this. I'm going to close this. Now, what I'm going to show you is right here on the corner. Think of where your Windows Start menu is. It says Menu. Click that. Now all these programs are pretty much set up. Okay. This is all Office stuff. Sound. It already has some things installed. Media Player, Rhythm Box, VLC. You have a driver manager here, a software manager, disk usage analyzer, all kinds of things. But what I want to do is, first thing is, up here is Firefox. I'm not going to do that. Right underneath Firefox is the software manager. It looks like a green circle and some kind of squarish thing with little dots on it. So I'm going to click that. And the reason I'm starting this is Linux does have a lot of games. It runs a lot of things. One of the things you will not see when you go through their list, if you go to games, see here's Steam, you can set up, and you go to games, and you click on games, all this stuff loads up. Now over here they have emulators. Now all these are emulators of some type. Right here, Heigen. Alright, this works for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Sega Master System, Game Gear, NES, PC Engine, Super Graphics, Wonder Swan, all this stuff, okay? This is what you want to install, is Heigen if you want to play Super Nintendo games. Of course, it's going to ask for my password. And like I say, there's a whole list of emulators, but this is one you want to install if you like Super Nintendo and things like that, NES, Game Boy. One of the other emulators they do not have on their list. Alright, now I'm going to go back to the back arrow, and I'm going to go back again, and right here where you first started, I'm going to type in PPSSPP. I think that's the name of that. Yep. Alright, PPSSPP is not on their list. Alright, but they do have it. Now, what this emulator is a PlayStation portable, or a PSP emulator. This is a really good emulator for PSP games. And see, I hit install. It tells me I need to install additional software. I hit continue. Sometimes it will ask for a password. Sometimes it won't. Usually it does. But since I just put a password for a different emulator, it's going through without one, it looks like. But this is a really good emulator for PSP games. And they have some really good games on PSP. So, they're not too big. They're not like PlayStation 2 or anything like that. But they got really good graphics to them, really good sound. This emulator actually has a cheat disk, actually cheats built into it. I may do a video on how to use this. You can actually look on YouTube and find videos on this. But this video is getting so long, I do apologize for this. But if you need to know about certain things on your machine, whether you can run 64 or 32-bit, there's different ways. If you already have an operating system, like I said, use the program that I talked about earlier. If you can't access anything, and I mean you have no operating system, download Linux Mint, both 32 and 64-bit, and you don't have to install it to see if it'll work. Linux Mint comes with a what they call live CD, that will run straight off the USB, so you don't have to install it on your hard drive. But check the 64-bit version if you're unsure, and see if it'll install or even run. If it doesn't run, it will tell you that it's not 64-bit compatible. Okay? Anyway, I apologize for the length of this video. It is seriously long. If you would like me to do any other types of videos, just let me know. I appreciate you sitting through the entire length of this, if you did. If you didn't, hopefully you got information that you needed. And I guess I will shut this down now, and I have to encode this video, slap it all together from where I stopped it, and hopefully it's not too big. So anyway, everyone have a good day, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in comments. And once again, I apologize for the quality of these videos. If you watch my review on the little camera that I have, the little camcorder thing, you'll know it is just really bad. And once again, I do apologize for the quality. I apologize for the length. If you have a Presario F700, then it depends on your chips, your chipset. If you have the AMD X64X2 mobile, then you can run 64-bit. Once again, I apologize for the length of the video, and it's time for me to go, and everybody have a good day.